Silakan.
Terima kasih, Puan Pengurusi, Datuk-datuk yang berbahagia, Datuk-datuk, tuan-tuan dan puan-puan yang saya hormati. Selamat pagi dan salam satu Malaysia. It is indeed an honor to be given this opportunity to present the role of JUPEM, which is the Department of Surveying and Mapping Malaysia, in support of spatial enablement of the government and the society. It is well recognized by now that the spatial enablement of the government and the society is a very much desirable. And the Department of Surveying and Mapping Malaysia is indeed in the forefront of supporting such a movement. Now my presentation will begin with spatial enablement of the government, which will try to relate the people, government, and the technology. And I'll proceed to explain the role of JUPEM in enabling government. We basically provide the fundamental data set that are so vital for the success of spatial enablement. And then I proceed to explain the current situation and the initiative to be undertaken by the department, before ending with a short conclusion. Now, spatial enablement, according to Professor Ian Williamson, is about managing information spatially, and not just managing spatial information alone. Now, as we know, spatial enablement is actually still evolving. This is particularly so because of the evolving society, technology, and also the government. Now, despite such a dynamism in spatial enablement, we still need to forge ahead with spatial enablement activities. This is particularly so if we were to look at the government being a part of the bigger society. And the government needs to be related to the people via appropriate technology. In this case, it can be the system, just basically to support business and also to support the citizen. Interestingly, if you look at the policy, decision, and even the activities undertaken by the government at this moment, most of them do have a spatial footprint. And as such, it is only fair for the government to provide such enablement not only to the government itself, but also to the society. Now in Malaysia, we are lucky because we have such an enabling system already put in place for the government. This comes in the form of an enabling technology, enabling platform, enabling system, and also as such enable the government. Now looking at the list of activities displayed, you will notice that the Department of Surveying and Mapping is actually in the forefront of supporting such an activities. Now this slide basically shows you the numerous activities that are actually spatially enabled or spatially related, especially when it comes to the enhancement of business activity. And of course, not to say the least, is the protection of the people, the citizen, and also to the environment. Now with all the activities being listed, you will notice that the Department of Survey and Mapping is once again in the forefront. And this is because we are providing the so-called geodetic reference frame. Now, to the layman, it will be just simply precise positioning infrastructure. And also, we are the custodian for Malaysian geospatial data, including the cadastre database, that is the NDCDB, the PADU, utility database, and also the topographic database. Now, if you look at it, JUPEM is actually a very committed enabler and supporter of spatial enablement of the government and society. Such commitment can be seen, or is actually being reflected in its vision and mission. It is because we envision that we will need to provide quality mapping with the manpower we have, based on the system that we have, and of course, in order to fulfill the nation's vision. Now, this is actually a very challenging task because it includes what we call managing spatial data in a AAA grade type of a data. In this case, I add another S to it for security. Meaning to say that data have to be made available, accessible, accurate, authoritative, and yet secure for the nation. Many users may not be aware of such an effort required, the amount of effort required to put into such a system to ensure just the AAA grading. Now, the Department of Survey and Mapping actually have numerous divisions just to cater for this. So our activity basically that we cater for include geodetic, which is actually precise positioning. We provide topographical and utility mapping, defense for the defense, and cadastral survey for title survey. And also we are responsible for the international boundary. Bearing in mind all these activities are managed spatially. Now let's look at the current activities that is spatially enabled for the government. At the very top of it, this is a simplified version, if you look carefully. Basically, the department manages a common datum, which is actually a prerequisite for spatial enablement. Now, this prerequisite will allow user to overlay multiple layers of multiple accuracy. And beside that, the most important part is that such a data must be accessible to the user. It must be easily accessible to be of any use at all to the user. Now, in August 2003, the department adopted the GDM 2000. This is very simple. Those days we used to have triangulation, and we densified it with GDM 2000. We provide up to 238 points for Peninsular Malaysia and 171 points for Sabah and Sarawak. And then we tie those points to the international terrestrial reference frame at a centimeter level accuracy. Now, I'll elaborate later why we still have to further improve even with the GDM 2000. Now, above that, the department provides the transformation parameter and also the map projection parameter, basically to facilitate the transition to GDM 2000. Now, for most of you may not be aware that if you were to carry out precise positioning, I'm saying about centimeter level, then you basically have to ignore the old datum or abandon it, so to say. In this case, it's basically the cadastral survey, the utility mapping, and also those doing engineering work. Now, as I mentioned earlier, of the 238 points that we have on the ground, it's still not good enough. Basically, for users who are not well versed with geodetic datum, they find it very difficult to access to it, and as such, the department has implemented the MyRTKNet. Now, this system basically allows any user with a single receiver to go to the ground, and all you have to do is dial into the geodetic division, and you will get an immediate correction in real time. Meaning to say, in terms of accessibility, the AAA grading in mind, the accessibility is now in your hand. Anyone at all you need is just a single GPS receiver, and you can position yourself to centimeter level accuracy. Now, this system also provides multiple accuracy that should any user do not require such a high precision, you can always subscribe to the lower end accuracy. Now, for vertical control, this is a very traditional thing, which used to be. Of course, with GPS now we have three-dimensional positioning. This is basically the old conventional method of providing vertical data. Now, basically, we manage 21 stations, out of which 4 of them are equipped with telemetry to allow us to monitor the sea level and as well as coming up with a mean sea level, which I think most of you who are in the engineering side should know that the mean sea level is the one that we use to control the vertical datum. Now, this is particularly so if we were to relate it to something like strata title, and even more critically now is when you try to relate it to MRT, all right? The mean sea level have to come into play. But despite saying that, it's still not easy for normal user or common user to access to such thing like a benchmark and try to relate to it. That's why the department come up with another easily accessible vertical datum in the form of a joint model, which allow any user, again, with a GPS to have a vertical positioning, at this case, also at centimeter level or sub-decimeter, and you can position yourself with relationship to the mean sea level. Now, the wonderful thing about MyJoy is that it allowed continuous upgrading, which I will explain later. Now, on the topographic side, we basically provide multiple scale based on a multi-source. All these are accessible to the people, to the rakyat, basically to attach or to overlay with, to assist the user to overlay with the spatially located information. Now this is that we have to acknowledge that the cadastral layer is actually the most important layer that is underpinning this so-called modern land information management system. Now knowing that, the department decided to move this cadastral layer from the previous datum to the current new NDCDB, which is coordinate-centered and survey accurate. Now being coordinate-centered, you will see that it is compatible with ICT, GIS, and also GNSS. So with that in mind, we have the NDCDB, and of course, because it's coordinated based, we managed to automate a lot of the processes in the office, and as well as allowed the public to gain access online to such a database. Now, another important and large-scale mapping entrusted to the department lately, that is back in October 2005, is the utility mapping. We are supposed to come up with a utility-based database for the whole of Klang Valley at a scale of 1 in 500. So we basically digitize it from map coming from the utility agency, and we put it into a database, overlay on top of the cadastral database and the topographic database. This is an example of the utility maps. And of course, the last but not the least, the department is also involved in defense, and the Defense Geospatial Division is basically responsible to collect all the data, spatial information, and supply it to the defense on the ground and in the sky. Now this division, besides utilizing those data provided by the department, they also carry out their own field survey, office processing, and at the same time provide supplementary data to the military. Now having explained all that, you will notice that the department actually do have a lot of databases and also a lot of services. And as such, we have taken the initiative to replicate all this data to a primary data center, not only because of the, to back it up as a storage, but also to allow it to be disseminated to the public through the JUPEM Geo portal. Now what about the future? The future, we will need to continuously enhance the system. The department will make sure that we continuously do that. This is basically because of the evolving science and technologies. Not that we want to catch up with them, but there is no choice but to move along with it. Now in this case, for precise positioning, we will enhance it from the current 50 station to 80 station to basically fill in all the gap. From the 28 station in Sabah and Sarawak to 68 station, also to fill in the gap. Just in case it's not implemented in time, we will have the mobile RTKnet to fill in the gap temporarily. As for MyJoy, which I have described earlier, which can allow for continuous upgrading observations such as gravimetry observation and also leveling will be carried out to further enhance the JOY model. Bearing in mind, we will still continue to upgrade the present tidal gauge to ensure that it is telemetric equipped to allow us to monitor the sea level in real time. Another project that we have undertaken is the multi-purpose cadaster. In our own definition, in Malaysia Boleh way, we define the multi-purpose cadaster as supported by a base layer from the NDCDB with a large-scale geographical features. Basically, to move from a single-purpose cadaster database to a multi-purpose or multi-usage database. So what are the features? Include inside there will be satellite imagery, buildings, street addresses, and of course, the all-beautiful 3D city model. Now, what are the mapping side? Mapping is a very funny issue. We thought that it will stay status quo. No. The department will continue to further enhance the present mapping process, simply because we got no choice but to move forward. This is actually intended with international move to use feature-based and large-scale mapping, which will actually require localized input. This localized input is a proven technology that has been used, or strategy that has been used by countries that are engaged in the rapid updating of their large-scale maps. So in this case, it is anticipated that Sabah and Sarawak will carry out their own planning, their own aerial photography, their own stereo digitization, stereo restitution, and also to come up with their own final product. Of course, this is very important that the airborne photography will still be carried out using very normal system, that is a digital camera. This is not a normal camera. It's not outside at the exhibition hall as well. Now, this camera basically in digital format, as you will simply say that you allow you to, after taking photograph, to allow you to move immediately to do your stereo digitizing. Now, this is an example of the camera that I'm talking about, with minimum lens distortion for those who like to talk about the expensive lens. This will be the type, minimum distortion, and of course, very high resolution. Then they will have to carry out the field observation as usual. This time, the field officer will be equipped with a host of equipment, including the GNSS and also the total station and rangefinder to populate the database on a feature-based method. Now, what's for the future? Now, the department has actually initiated research in the field of 3D cadaster. This is because of the growing complexity of the space that we are living in now. And it is actually in the interest of the nation to put upfront the legal and the practical requirement. Another aspect is marine cadaster. As the name implies, is cadaster in nature. We'll be talking about the 3R, and in this case, it is only fair that the marine cadaster be put in place to administer the marine environment in a sustainable manner for our future generation. Now with that, I must say that the Department of Survey and Mapping will continuously support spatial enablement of the government and the society for the benefit of the nation. Thank you for your attention.